doing, good people? This is the 8-Bit Animal. These are the two flavors of the Zapper Light Gun. This was the original colorway that they were released in, and this was the one that came out a little bit later. Once, controversy came up about guns being too realistic and all that. I don't know how this was too realistic for anybody, but who knows. Now, this peripheral came with every NES Deluxe set, action set, and power set. So between 1985 and about 1989, 1990, if you bought an NES, chances are you got one of these with it. They're not very functional now if you don't have a CRT television, but it's cool to have one, especially if you still have a CRT television, like I do. A lot of games weren't produced for the thing. They used the thing. This is probably the first third-party game that used the Zapper. It was published by Sunsoft in 1988. Remember, I keep talking about 1988 to like 1990, 91 being the sweet spot for the NES. This game takes advantage of that time frame because it features some solid gameplay and some really good graphics for the time. The intro sequence in particular is striking. Today's game is Freedom Force. Now in Freedom Force, you play as one of two counter-terrorist specialists. Rad Rex, I think his name is. It's a really weird name. Rad Rex or Manic Jackson. Neither name is very good, but very, very 80s. And your job is to rescue hostages. How do we do that in the 80s? Swift and blinding violence, like I'll keep saying. And that swift and blinding violence is illustrated through shooting the hostage takers and rescuing the hostages. Now, if you shoot a hostage by accident, it penalizes you with hits to your health bar and point deductions or something. But if you're successful, you advance to the next level. There's some sequences where you do some bomb defusal, stuff like that. And this game is pretty bare bones as far as what you are tasked with, but it's a light gun game. You really don't use a controller. You plug the light gun in port 2, use the controller to press start to pause things and keep things going. That's about it. And there's not a lot to this game. It's 5 levels. They loop a couple of times. You're tasked with stopping a couple of different groups of hostage takers in a couple of different environments, like parks and airports, airplanes, an abandoned building that once you beat the level collapses. I don't know if everybody got out, but the building collapses. And this game, for what it's worth, was a fun little escape from the typical shooting gallery setups that we got on the NES with the Zapper. But it's also just a shooting gallery setup. We won't see anything particularly different throughout the run of the Zapper, outside of something like, say, Gumshoe, where you use the Zapper to control your character. And, there's not a whole lot you could do with this peripheral, which is why it probably fizzled out and didn't get a lot of support. But the games that were released on it, if they had good controls and everything was built properly, you got a good experience out of it. Now, here's the part of the show where we talk about how much things go for. And a copy of Freedom Force, you could get it for about 15 to 20 bucks, something like that, for a loose cart. A complete cart, probably about $40 here or there, give or take. Yeah, it's not painfully expensive. And if you want a copy, you can get a copy pretty easily. There were a lot of them out there. I used to see this game pop up in used game stores all the time back in the day. I think that you should grab a copy though, because it's a solid video game. Solid example of what Sunsoft was capable of and them knowing what they were capable of going forward. Because after this, we got stuff like Batman and Blaster Master from them. This has been the 8-Bit Animal, and I'll catch you beautiful people tomorrow. Tomorrow, I promise, they used to just give us anything to play. Like, what is this game? What kind of gorilla?